Yo, what's up guys? Boogle here. Here we are with the Crazed Moneko updated guide. Top straight into the lineup explanation. There's a lot to cover since this is a continuation stage. As always with these updated guides, we're gonna dive into unit roles. This way you'll have a stronger idea of what units to replace if you don't have certain units, or if you have better units that could fulfill the same role. This being one of the unusual cases where it's a continuation stage, so you basically have to construct a lineup for two stages in one. Let's of course first cover the meat shields. This is a waiver stage, so meat shields is gonna have to be at a minimum here, but the initial stage of this two-stage battle, you will need a strong meat shield, and of course ramen works great as a very tanky meat shield, but specifically ramen and not maybe manic eraser because the angel enemies in the initial stage. Also, you'd have to sacrifice more slots if you're running like dual erasers, so you won't be able to run that many attackers, but dual erasers can definitely work. And of course manic mohawk is used in both the first half and the second half of this entire stage bundle. But just make sure you have a very strong meat shield for the first stage, and it will only be used for the first stage because using any tanky meat shield or even some of the weaker meat shields will cause you to die in the second stage. Now let's quickly talk about the crowd control units. It's a stage pretty similar to Manic Flying, the second part of this entire stage bundle. While in the initial stage you don't really need crowd control, but bringing it can help. So for the initial stage, if you have some great Ubers that cover the traits Angel and Zombie, you could bring them here. Housewife is here more used so as an attacker for the second part of this continuation stage, but it can be used in the initial stage as some form of crowd control against some of these zombie enemies and as just a great attacker. But there's absolutely one crowd control unit I highly recommend for this stage, and it is an anti-alien crowd control unit. There are very strong alien enemies in the second part of this continuation stage, which can be very problematic if you do not have crowd control units or just insane burst damage. But with the baseline of level 30 units here, there's no way in hell we're going to be killing those enemies quick enough. So bringing an alien crowd control unit is recommended. Red as well, but it's not really necessary because it's much easier to burst down the red boar. The bonus for a unit like Seafarer, which is our anti-alien crowd control unit of choice, it also works as just a general attacker as well. But of course you could bring things like Psycho Cat or any anti-alien crowd control Ubers you might have. Just know your primary focus here should be an anti-red and mainly an anti-alien crowd control unit. But play the stages out and see if you actually do need help. Maybe you do need to bring an anti-angel crowd control unit just to help handle some of these strong peons in the initial stage. Bahamut and Wolf here is very replaceable with any Ubers you might have because if they target angel, zombie, red, or alien, they're probably better for you in this stage anyways, so definitely slot them in. Wolf here can be used as a crowd control unit, but like I explained in many previous guides, Wolf isn't really a primary crowd control unit, it's just a bonus effect that she has and not something to completely rely on. One thing I'll say is be very careful with lower ranged crowd control units in this stage because there's a chance they will trigger waves. Things like Can against Red Boar is very risky, same as iCat. The thing about Seafarer and Psycho Cat, for example, is that they have much larger ranges and they could sit back and fulfill their role while also safely avoiding activating any waves, which is ultimately the goal. As a bonus in here, I'll say wave blockers do work in this stage, kind of, but I found them to be quite inconsistent because the peons in the stage are just too strong. They just die very quickly against like the boars. So you can try wave blockers in this stage. It does definitely work. I'll just say it's not consistent because you can actually play this stage without activating a single wave, even without wave blockers, and we'll dive into that in the strategy explanation. Now of course let's hop into the attackers for this two-part stage. Now you don't really need any target trait attackers. Bringing just general attackers can work in here quite well. Of course the most basic example of this is just bringing the dragon cats, just good ranged attackers that can be stacked, but there is one main theme here, and that is LD attackers, long distant attackers. LD units usually have a larger range, but the main downside of most LD units is that they do have a blind spot, which means if an enemy unit gets close enough to them and enters their blind spot, they won't be able to hit them. They'll still be able to use their attack, trigger their attack animation, as every LD unit still has a default standing range attack. But the reason we want to bring LD in this stage is because there is many instances of your stack of your attackers that will need to actually snipe the main boss in the back of the stage, that being Crazed Moneko. We'll dive into specifics in the strategy explanation, of course. Just know bringing LD units does help out quite a lot in this stage. In this example, we have, of course, the one and only Courier works great as just a very strong attacker. Could rush in there, get huge damage. Also, Red Boar in the stage gets completely demolished by Courier. Now, my Courier here is level 30, so we do have to bring the help of Cat, another anti-red attacker. But Courier has LD, so Courier will actually hit the units behind the boar as well. Housewife, general attacker, has LD. Nymph Cat here, general attacker, has LD. Just make sure you have at least 1 to 2 LD units in the stage. It helps out quite a lot. The rest of your attackers can be just default general attackers, like we have Cameraman here. We have Seafarer, you can bring Cyborg, you could bring Pizza Cat. As long as the attacker you bring outranges Crazed Moneko, it will work fantastic in the second part of this continuation stage. Bringing any nukers here could help out quite a bit. Our general nuker here is Crazed Bahamut, and Wolf is just here as just another general attacker on field DPS. As long as you have 1 to 2 LD units, the rest of your attackers can be very default. Even just the bare bones dual dragons can work in here. Just be sure to compensate your weaknesses. In this case, our weakness is against the Red Boar. I found that we weren't able to actually kill the Red Boar quick enough, so we just slot in Cat. So play the stage, figure out what you're really needing, and construct your lineup around that, because everyone has different cat units, different cat levels, but as long as you have units that fulfill the same role, you'll be fine. Let's hop into the strategy explanation. Don't really need any power-ups for the stage, and it being a continuation stage means the power-ups don't carry over into the second stage anyways, so in that case bringing power-ups could be a waste. Now this is a basic stage where the main boss of the stage is pretty much this Slipner paired with some very annoying angel peons. That's why Ramen is so excellent for this stage. Of course, it being a base hit stage means you want to take advantage of that base hit and build as much cash and max out your wallet as much as possible, and try to actually start building a stack, because there are 2 major events in this stage which can lead you to lose, and that is when you hit the base and the initial wave of gories come out, the angel gories and the zombie gories. The second major event of the stage is when zombie seal comes out, and if you're not prepared for that, you will easily be knocked back pretty far and lose a lot of ground and potentially even lose. So just kind of build up a lot of your cash here in the beginning, max out your wallet, try to get your cash as high as possible without pushing too hard, because you do not want to hit the base early. Building up a stack here initially can help out tremendously later in the level, because there's a great chance that the gories will just shred through everything if you don't have a big enough stack built up. Using Holy Blast could help out quite a bit in this stage, but of course you have to remember this is a continuation stage, so your loadout will carry over into the second stage, where Holy Blast will not help out at all. So I do recommend just regular cat cannon, as you can negate the zombies' burrows with just a regular cat cannon as well. The main thing here is to actually save 1 cat cannon for when the zombie seal arrives, because your best chance of beating the stage is to cancel the seal's burrow with your cat cannon. And how you do that is pretty simple. You just time your cat cannon to when the seal is in its burrow animation, and when it gets knocked back, while it's burrowing, it will cancel its burrow. If you do pull this off, then that is your ticket to beat the stage pretty easily. The same applies for this initial wave when you hit the base as well, unless you're using a lure strat, in which case you wouldn't need to use your cat cannon here, but it's way more important in the zombie seal phase. Now you can probably tell we're not sending out both of our legends here out at once. We still have Wolf ready on standby, and that is exactly what we want, because we need a unit on standby, a powerful unit on standby for the seal phase, whether that be your nuker or just a powerful on-field DPS. Save one in your pocket for when that seal phase does happen. Otherwise, we stack up our attackers here. Try to fight back, hold as much ground as possible. It will get quite tricky when these gory waves just continuously happen because you can't stop them from borrowing every single time. And that's exactly why we don't have 2 of our legends on the field at once, or 2 of your Ubers on the field at once, because the gories will borrow eventually and they will eventually kill your strong attackers. So that is why we keep a pocket strong attacker on standby for when that seal phase happens. The thing about this stage is that if you're using mid-ranged attackers, it's quite hard to actually hit Slipner unless you're using the LD units like we are here. But that's why dragons are just such a default option in this stage, is because they help out tremendously in this part of the stage and also the continuation part. And you could probably tell there's a high amount of pressure in this stage. And for stages like this, it is actually quite easier to fight closer to the base. Though in this case, even though it's not intentional, it does help because the zombies borrowing just lose you so much ground. The main thing here is, as long as you're able to either 1, cancel the seal's borrow, or 2, knock it back, kill it quick enough, then you should be able to recover. And there was a very rare Savage Blow there from Housewife. Savage Blow talents aren't needed here, but it is just a bonus thing I do have on Housewife at level 1. But this is exactly why we pocket one of our strong attackers, because if we aren't able to cancel the borrow of the zombie seal, we need to kill it quick enough, or knock it back, or do something. And the reason I don't pocket Wolf instead of Bahamut here, because Wolf has that chance to knock back as well, so it's just an extra layer of security if it does happen. But you could definitely do it the other way around as well, by pocketing a Bahamut and just using it to just nuke the seal. Now this is where using mid-range attackers could be annoying, because you're pretty much left using the peons as leverage for your LD units to actually hit the Slipner. So if you're not using longer ranged attackers like the dragons in this stage, this is where it could be a bit troublesome. You'll have to rely on your legends like Bahamut and Wolf, and or your Ubers if you're using them. Getting around those initial 2 events of this stage can be quite rough, but if you have the key gachas, if you have level 30 units, you should be fine. Cameraman is quietly the MVP of this stage as well, being a cheap, cost-efficient attacker that is stackable and can hold you some ground as well. But of course, it's not over yet. After you beat this stage, you will have to go into the continuation stage, which is in the moon. And the whole gimmick of these continuation stages is that you have to use your already constructed lineup to actually continue from this stage right into the next. So you're not able to change your lineup between stages. So yes, the lineup explanation is important as always, but especially important in this stage. So let's dive into In the Moon. Now this stage plays very differently. The start is the same. You want to stack your cash, stack your wallet, get as much cash and your wallet maxed out as much as possible. You do not want to hit the base early. The stage would definitely become much more difficult if it was not a base hit stage, so you do have to take advantage of that. This is where you could also stack up some extreme long range units as well if you're using units like Cyberpunk, Afro, etc. If you're using single target crowd control units, this is also when you'd want to stack them up. Thaumaturge, for example, very excellent in this stage. This is when you'd want to stack up Thaumaturge, because Thaumaturge is single target and you would need a stack to properly crowd control. Now you have to be prepared for this base hit because it is a very significant one, because not only does the boss of the stage spawn in, of course, Crazed Moneko, but there's also the boar waves. They begin as soon as you hit the base, and there's around 4 boar waves, and each boar wave has an interval of around a minute. So compared to a stage like Manic Flying, which is pretty similar, it is way faster. However, instead of alien boar in this stage, we have super buffed alien cyberhorns. And let's just say if you don't have all of the Into the Future chapter 1 to 3 treasures superior, you will not be able to kill the cyberhorn unless you're using the help of some insane Ubers. So when you hit the base, this massive wave starts, and every minute this wave will repeat up to 4 times. The main threats in this huge wave is of course the boar, which you want to lure out, burst down as quick as possible. Now, it's very important to understand how you meat shield in this stage, because there is a way to actually avoid triggering any waves at all. So Crazed Moneko has a multi-hit attack. What this means is Crazed Moneko's attack animation has multiple instances of her actually hitting a unit. The main one is when she does her final hit. That is the hit that could actually trigger the wave. So that means the first and the second hit of the multi-hit attack have a 0% chance to trigger a wave. However, if that third hit lands on any unit, it will 100% chance trigger a wave. So how exactly do we combat this? First of all, you can see how much of a struggle this actually is to maintain yourself with level 30 units in the stage. Even with the help of Manic Cat, COURIER still couldn't burst down the boar quick enough. So yes, first of all, make sure you do have some ground to work with, because you do not want to meat shield too much during this part. If you can tell when the boar is getting too close to your stack of attackers, that's when you could send out the occasional Manic Mohawk. Avoid using any tanky meat shields at all. You have to let your stack of attackers carry here and or your crowd control units. Now, how do we avoid the waves with certainty? Well, Moneko's multi-hit is very easy to time. All you have to do is just make sure to only meat shield after Moneko finishes her multi-hit attack, and only send out that one meat shield. What happens is the meat shield walks up to Crazed Moneko, and then Crazed Moneko will start her multi-hit attack animation, and the first hit of her multi-hit attack animation will knock back the meat shield and or kill the meat shield. And this is very significant because Crazed Moneko will continue her attack animation unless she's interrupted, but she'll basically be hitting nothing, which means she has a 0% chance to trigger a wave even on her third hit of her multi-hit, which has a 100% chance to trigger a wave. If Crazed Moneko is hitting nothing, there's no chance for that wave to trigger. So we essentially bait out Moneko's attacks, and you have to properly time your meat shielding towards Moneko's attack patterns, and make sure not to meat shield when Moneko is already in her attack animation. Otherwise, there's a great chance that your meat shield just runs up and eventually will walk right into the final hit of Crazed Moneko's multi-hit attack and trigger the wave. That's why I say it's so important to use a weaker meat shield in this part of the stage, because Crazed Moneko's multi-hit will actually kill or even knock back at the very least to make Crazed Moneko miss her wave. So yes, you do have to fight this very scary battle of fighting against the boar and that super buff Cyberhorn and the rest of the enemies without meat shielding too much. But the thing here is, eventually Crazed Moneko will reach your attackers. If she's moving forward, eventually, if you don't have a meat shield up there, let's say the boar is just killing all of your meat shields too quickly, Crazed Moneko will move up and target one of your attackers that are closer to her. And this is exactly why we bring LD units, because we want to reset her attack animation. Crazed Moneko has a number of damage knockbacks. We could abuse this by constantly getting damage knockbacks on Crazed Moneko to reset her attack animation, but also make her reposition so we get a safer spot for our meat shield to walk up and actually bait out the new attack. So using the boar waves and the Cyberhorns as leverage for your LD units to actually snipe Crazed Moneko in the back is just an extra layer of security, which can pretty much guarantee you no waves in the stage at all if you are able to properly meat shield. So your attacker's sole purpose in this stage is not only to handle this boar wave and handle the Cyberhorns, but also to keep juggling Crazed Moneko and not trigger her attack animations on an unlucky targeted attacker. If you're using a tanky meat shield in the stage that is not able to be easily knocked back, it'll just tank through everything and sit through the entire multi-hit of Crazed Moneko, which will trigger the wave with certainty. So it's not like you want to stop meat shielding at all, but you want to actually time your meat shields and bait out Crazed Moneko's attacks and slowly build up your stack, because eventually Crazed Moneko will be getting knocked back so much that you'll just be able to get her in a knockback lock animation and just eventually kill her. And this was a pretty rough example as well, because we did not stack early in the stage at all, and we did have a rough time just because of that. So yeah, if you don't want to get overwhelmed when you hit the base, make sure you build up a proper enough stack. But that pretty much wraps up Crazed Moneko. Drop a like if this guide helped you out. Subscribe if you're new. Join the hashtag Boogle gang Discord down below as well. But that's it. It's been John Boogle, and see ya.